We have big news out of the Flyers organization. Defenseman Tony DeAngelo was being bought out. We'll discuss how it affects him and his contract and the Flyers cap situation moving forward. Plus, we have some signings in New Jersey, St. Louis, and Pittsburgh, and some minor league signings for the Maple Leafs, including Brock Caufield. All that coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have some breaking news out of the NHL. The Philadelphia Flyers today have announced that they're buying out the remaining year of the contract of defenseman Tony DeAngelo. Now, we had fully suspected that DeAngelo was going to be traded to the Carolina Hurricanes. That was something that's been rumored for quite some time. It was believed that the Flyers and the Hurricanes had tried to execute this trade around the beginning of free agency, I think it was. And the NHL had told them they could not do it because it had not been a full year since DeAngelo was traded from Carolina to Philly, the other way around. Mainly, the only reason that was preventing that was the Flyers were going to retain salary and had 50% stay with them and the other 50% be paid by Carolina. So, obviously, the Hurricanes were going to get Tony DeAngelo for $2.5 million. And this way, they can still get him if they want. But essentially, here's why things went down the way they did. The Flyers recently had a player, Noah Cates, who had filed for salary arbitration as a restricted free agent. That contract has now been settled. So they had 48 hours from the time of that to open a second buyout window. So they decided to go down that route. Essentially, the trade for DeAngelo to Carolina has been put on hold now. We've been saying for some time, and reporters have been saying that it wasn't a matter of if, it was when. But the problem here is that the Hurricanes have other bigger things that they're working on. And basically, I think, had asked the Flyers to kind of put this on the back burner. Not that they didn't want to do the deal, but they're involved in trade discussions, seeing if they can land Erik Karlsson. There's also Brett Pesce's contract negotiation that's ongoing for an extension, which apparently isn't going well, which could lead to a trade. They're in talks with Vladimir Tarasenko, who is still a pending unrestricted free agent as well. They just have a lot of other things on the go right now, and I think they just wanted to get a few more things settled before they brought DeAngelo in to make sure that he would slot properly in the lineup where they want it and for the right price and all that. And essentially, you know, the Flyers are kind of get tired of waiting. They had an opportunity here. They only had a couple of days to conduct this buyout, and if they don't do it and then something changes in Carolina further into the offseason says, yeah, you know what, we can't do it now. Well, then the Flyers were screwed. They either have to find another trade partner, which is going to be difficult to do, or they are going to be stuck with them for another year. And I don't think Tony DeAngelo and John Tortorella were going to be working together next year one way or another. So ultimately, the Flyers decided to proceed with this buyout where they had the opportunity. Yes, the cap hit will be a little bit longer on the books, but at least it's their own control here. So essentially, he had 1 year left at $5 million. The cap hit will drop to $1.66 million for this year, so the Flyers will save $3.4 million. Of course, they will get an additional year added onto their cap hit next year as well for the same cap hit, $1.66 million. So ultimately, it's not terrible. They're just going to take the money they were going to pay him. It works out to be slightly more this way, and they do it over the course of 2 years instead of one. But where the Flyers are at with their with being competitive and their cap and all that, they're not really in a situation where they're likely going to be a cap team anyway. So I don't really think they're too concerned about the additional cap hit for next season. Now, if I'm not mistaken, I do believe this is the only player in Tony DeAngelo to be the first to be bought out of 2 NHL contracts. I'm pretty sure it was the first time that's happened. Now, there was some, when the news first broke, the Flyers have posted on their social media that he was on unconditional waivers. They didn't specify for buyout, and a lot of people were jumping to conclusions saying that this was contract termination, which quite honestly surprised me. We saw this with Alex Galchenyuk yesterday, which, by the way, he has cleared, no surprise. So he's officially off the Coyotes roster and officially an unrestricted free agent again. Now he's also dealing with legal issues based on an arrest that happened a few days ago. So I don't know that he's going to get another contract for this year. This could be the end for him. It's really difficult to say. I'm not sure if any future opportunities will be coming about for Galchenyuk or not. In the case of DeAngelo, though, that with people jumping to conclusions without checking into it first, it is not a termination. It is a buyout, so he is getting some of the money. It's completely justified because he didn't do anything that at this point that we're aware of to justify getting terminated. This is just their right to exercise a buyout based on the CBA. So Deangelo can sign in Carolina now or elsewhere if he's able to. Be interesting to see if he does go to the Hurricanes. But like I said, they've got a lot of bigger things they're working on. I think they will welcome him back if he can sign for the right price. But it might have to wait a little bit and be patient on getting some of this other business taken care of first. Now, as I mentioned, we have some other signings today as well. The New Jersey Devils today signed veteran centerman Chris Tierney. He's likely not going to be on the NHL roster. If he is, he'll be in the fourth-line role. He gets a 1-year, 2-way deal. League minimum at the NHL, $775, with a very highly incentive AHL salary of $400,000. He split last year between the Charlotte Checkers, where he was playing as an affiliate for the Florida Panthers. We got a little bit of time in Florida as a call-up, and then later got traded to Montreal, where he stayed in the NHL and finished the season. So Tierney is, at this point, kind of a fringe NHLer. He had a handful of decent seasons towards the end of his time in San Jose. Of course, he was included in the Erik Karlsson trade to the Senators. Gave them a couple of good years, and then it started to decline. And by the time he left Ottawa, he was having a lot of issues with his back. I'm not sure if those are still ongoing or if he's had things kind of corrected in that sense. But it really impacted his play, and he was having a difficult time being productive. Then when he went down, signed in Florida, and ended up in the minors. Had a decent showing. I think he had like 16 points in 20 games. Had a call up to the Panthers, and then I think played just well enough to get traded to Montreal, and then obviously to get this contract. But like I said, he'll be an extra piece for the Devils, to some extra depth. You never know. Maybe he makes it out of training camp on the roster, but it wouldn't be shocking if he's in the American Hockey League to start. But at least they have somebody with a good experience that can be a call up should they need it. He's decent on faceoffs, and it's not the same player he used to be, but we'll see how things work out there. The Blues have signed their prize prospect for the 23 NHL draft, Dalibor Dvorsky. He gets his 3-year entry-level contract. Watching some highlights from the St. Louis Blues development camp, watching him play, he looks like he's pretty darn close to being NHL ready. It looks like he's going to be a real solid player for them. I believe right now the plan, though, is for him to play in Sweden in the SHL. Things could always change. I imagine he'll still attend Blues training camp in the fall and see where things go. But I believe, based on St. Louis reporters, they believe that's where he's heading for at least one more season. And after that, he'll likely make the NHL. The Penguins have signed one of their prospects as well, a 2023 third-rounder, who's a left-shot defenseman out of Finland. Emil Pieniemi gets his 3-year entry-level contract. That name is a little bit difficult to pronounce, so certainly... hopefully I get that right, but I believe it's Pieniemi based on the pronunciation and how it's spelled there. So good on him. Is considering how quickly he's been drafted, like just a few weeks back as a third rounder. That's impressive that they already feel confident giving him his ELC. And the Maple Leafs have signed 6 players who are on AHL contracts, so they're not eligible to be called up to the Toronto Maple Leafs just yet. But usually some players have to start off this way in some cases, and if they play well, they'll eventually get upgraded to an NHL 2-way contract. This list of players includes Nolan Dillingham, Jackson Berezowski, and Neil Shea, Tate Singleton, Tyler Weiss, and Brock Caufield. Yes, Brock Caufield will get the headline here out of this group of players, mostly because of his name. Yes, he is the brother of Cole Caufield of the Montreal Canadiens. Brock, of course, is a little bit older. He's 24 years old. He's been playing U.S. college hockey for the last number of years. He's also played with Cole in Wisconsin for a few seasons. So certainly a little bit of an older prospect coming out of the college scene. There's been some speculation that he would get some sort of pro contract. Obviously not the same player that his brother is. Not the high-level elite considered prospect like Cole is. But the fact that he's going to the Marlies should make things interesting. If he ends up doing well and can eventually get to the Leafs main roster, that could make very, very intriguing, Habs versus Leafs brother duel. I mean, it's always fun watching NHL brothers go head to head, but it's not often you see them in two major markets going head to head together, especially in the Canadian market as well, where there's so much media attention. But of course, Brock has some work to do. Be curious to see though if he can work his way up and get to play for the Leafs on their roster, the NHL. I know there was some speculation back, I want to say a month or two ago, that Montreal might actually sign him because he was a free agent who was undrafted, so he could have went anywheres. And there was some talk that the Habs might bring in Cole's brother. You often see that with a lot of NHL teams. They'll bring in brothers of some of their top players just to give them a chance to play at different levels to see if there's something there or if they can make it work or whatever. A little surprised they didn't do that, but at least he's in a good spot, good Canadian market. Like I said, it'll make things real interesting if he can work his way up and have a brotherly duel at the NHL level. But he's got some work to do to make that happen. Let me know your thoughts on all of today's news down in the comments. We'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.